Hey, nothing tonight I've heard changes the fact that only one school is slated for reopening, and it happens to be in the board president's district. That isn't public service, that's political self-service. So let's talk about the facts for a second. The facts are that for each student, each one of the 205 students, 205 that are currently enrolled at Lamar Elementary, it costs $11,474 per year to educate those children. Now, the state gives us, oh, I just had it here, $6,160. Hopefully that changes in the near future, but that's what it is right now. So that's a gap of $5,314 for each student. Now, where does that money come from? It comes from local funds. We have to come up with that money here in El Paso. Reopening Lamar Elementary is gonna cost $3.2 million per year. It's not just a one-time expense, it's per year. Now, on Friday, I got the latest numbers from our finance people, and next school year, we are facing a deficit of $31 million. $31 million, and the latest projections from the bills that are winding their way through the Texas State Senate is not gonna save us from that. It's gonna be marginal impact, if any. Now, I try to, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So I hope it's not actually all $31 million that we have to come up with next year. And by the way, that $31 million does not include the reopening of Lamar Elementary or any other schools. We gotta add $3.2 million on top of that. And only in El Paso politics do we respond to a financial crisis by adding a new expense and calling it progress. It feels like right now we're financially on the Titanic and it's sinking. We're $31 million underwater, and the brilliant idea from our board president is to reopen the piano bar. Does that make sense to anybody here? It doesn't really make sense to me. So I asked the board president and the folks that are, getting upset with me right now, what's the plan to close the gap of $31 million, or shall we say $34 million if we include Lamar Elementary in here? What's the plan? If the answer is just, well, we got a rainy day fund, AKA fund balance, that's there. We can use it whenever we want. Well, thanks to the prudent financial management of this school district by previous boards, we have $105 million, roughly, for a rainy day. That equates to 70 days of expenses of our school district, roughly. So what that means is that we can only do this for maybe 2 years before we're in serious, serious financial trouble. This is gambling our future. If we just go to fund balance for $34 million, that's roughly 49 days of fund balance that will be left at the end of next year.
That's not what we're proposing.
Roughly, that's even less than what Isleta was at last year. That's less than what Socorro was at 2 years from now. Does that sound like a good plan to anybody here? So let's talk about Lamar for a second. My first impression of EPISD after I moved here 15 years ago was seeing the superintendent perp walked by FBI agents. I don't want the same thing to happen here again. Our current board president is leading us down a path of questionable ethics. Because the fact remains, why is it only this one school?
Point of order, please.
Why not the 7 other schools slated for closure?
I'm going to second that point of order.
This school
Trustee
that we're
Call,
talking about,
there
Lamar
are certain
Elementary,
rules and
is
order.
30% full.
There are certain rules and orders. So
I have a
that
First
there is
Amendment right to speak.
Not if it's derogatory.
77% of my constituents elected me to represent them, and I will not be silenced.
Ms. Collins, in terms of the point of order where you're directly attacking someone's, where it's basically a
Lamar
sidebar
Elementary
comment.
was opened in 1961.
May I get a ruling on that? Ms. Collins? in terms of the personal attacks on another board member, please.
Just one moment. Well, and this is what I could say, because I was looking under Robert's Rules of Order, that it's just not giving me the answer that I want right now with regards to the point of order. I understand that you believe it to be a personal attack against Trustee Hanany. I would just request that the board be able to continue the discussion without personal attacks, or I guess perceived personal attacks. I mean, because Trustee Cuellar, you also made some attacks, although they're not with people that are on the dais right now, and so you made those comments as well. I think we're here for civil discussion, and that would be the best advice that I could give you right now. And let's have the discourse, let's have civil discussion. The board can make a vote, but let's allow people to say what they would like to say.
That's a fair ruling. Ms. Collins, thank you.
Thank you.
And I was also going to ask, as a secretary of the board, I know that we don't have a sergeant at arms or anything like that, but I would ask the members of the public. I know Trustee Call has made some rhetorical questions, or he'll ask, but this is the time for the board to speak. The public comment was already given. Whether you're for or against this, neutral, we would just ask that you respect everybody else's time up here. Thank you.
Thank you. So the facts are that Lamar Elementary was completed in 1961 and has not been significantly renovated since that day. According to the latest projections, Mr. Pearson, tell me if I'm getting any of this wrong, but it looks like we need about $7.7 million to bring it up to an acceptable condition for students.
President Hanany, trustees, members of the board. Mr. Call, to answer your question, the numbers that we presented to you guys were just a high-level picture of cost of correction. The actual dollar amount is a little bit more inflated than the $7 million. The numbers that we have, according to the FCI report, is about 12 million, or just upwards of about $12.5 million.
Okay, thank you. Now, as I said before, 206 students are currently enrolled at Lamar Elementary. Now, we have been trying to track down how many of them would like to return if it was reopened. And it looks at this point about 88% of the families that we could get a hold of wanted to return to elementary, or to Lamar Elementary. So using that math and projecting it out, it looks like roughly 180 students, more or less, is what we expect to be there after this is all said and done. So again, that's $3.2 million that we're spending per year to keep a school open that would have roughly 180 students in attendance. Now, over the past couple of weeks, I've heard from a lot of employees that are really, really nervous about this happening. It's not so much about this one school, but it's about the direction that the school district is heading in. They're scared, and I don't blame them. While the influential and the powerful play political games here, it's the everyday employees and the students are the ones that are going to end up suffering in the end. So let's talk about what's in store if we go down this road, which I hope we don't. But in Socorro, as much as I don't like talking about this, they announced in February that they needed to cut 300 positions. This is 300 families. This is 300 families that are negatively impacted by this. It's a $38 million deficit. Roughly 230 of their employees voluntarily resigned. And then they had to lay off 43 positions. I guess it was fine arts that were eliminated, class sizes increased. They're just 2 years ahead of us. This will happen to EPISD if we go down this road. Isleta considering a $25 million short-term loan to get them through. The article that I read said that they wouldn't answer questions as to how many would be laid off. But 117 of their employees had accepted a $5,000 bonus to give their resignation. Now, because we're behind the curve and because we've been good financial stewards of taxpayer money so far, we haven't had to go through this yet, but it will happen. And my question to everybody here is, if we get to the point to where we have to lay people off, say we have to lay off 400 people like Socorro, needed to cut 400 positions, where are these professionals gonna go? Which school district in El Paso is gonna have the capacity to pick these people up? I don't know if any of you have ever been unemployed before, but I have. When I moved to El Paso 15 years ago, it took me a while to really break into the job market here. I was unemployed for 8 months. I had a young wife. I had 2 young children at the time, and it was the worst time of my life. I struggled with some major challenges. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, but that's what's in store for our community and for a good chunk of our 7,500 employees if we go down this road. So I implore my colleagues not to go down this road. Me personally, I wish to completely wash my hands of this. In the years to come, I hope that the trustees that are about to vote on this proposal take full responsibility for everything that happens from this point forward. Not blame the state for the lack of funding, although that's certainly a challenge that we've faced, and that's a real thing. But I hope the trustees, and I don't blame the new trustees because they're just getting their feet wet here. But I hope that the trustees that vote for this look themselves in the mirror and are honest with themselves about who caused the calamity that's going to happen in our school district. In closing, throwing $3.2 million on a $31 million bonfire is not leadership. It's madness. I want nothing to do with this, and I want the record to show that I stood against this in the strongest possible terms. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Call.
I have a comment.
Ms. Beals?
Yes. I have a few comments and questions. $3.2 million is a lot of money. The $3.2 million used to reopen Lamar can go towards possibly saving 46 teachers from being laid off or bought out, in my opinion. $3.2 million used to reopen Lamar can go towards improving student outcomes through educational opportunities and programs. $3.2 million used to open Lamar could instead go towards giving students greater opportunities to discover fine arts and sports that bring them joy and success. The $3.2 million in savings from closing Lamar respects our residents and taxpayers, provides additional opportunities to our students, and secures jobs for our teachers. It puts our people first. Additionally, El Paso Matters just published a story yesterday with the headline, El Paso City population grew by 150 people in 2024. That's not a lot. I honestly don't see how any of this makes sense when all the signs are showing that we must tighten our belts and live within our means, much like every taxpayer has to do in their own personal life. We are too big to live paycheck to paycheck, or in this case, bond to bond. To the trustees that placed this item, what is your plan to address the growing deficit and protects our quality and dedicated EPISD teachers and staff from losing their jobs like YISD, SISD, and CISD? I have always said I'm not a politician. I am here for the greater good of the district as a whole. I plan on, I hope that I can leave this district when my term is up and say that I did everything in my power to make this district better as a whole, not while I'm serving my term up here. I get so upset when just thinking about some of the politicians up here using this as their political step to their political career, making decisions that are gonna look good on their political resume, not, because they're not caring about how they're gonna leave the district once their term is up, because it doesn't hurt them. They did their.
Point of order, I would ask that you refrain from personal attacks and focus on the issues.
It's not a personal attack. I'm just stating that I would like to, I'm not using this as a political stepping stone to my career. I would appreciate if whoever is gonna vote for this to think of the long-term effects on this district, not just what's gonna be good for right now or this year or next year, but thinking of the district as a whole. Because not only does it affect our communities, but our children. That's money being taken away from our kids.
Thank you, Trustee Beals.